The oldest grandchild of John and Jackie Kennedy lives a more private life than the rest of her famous family, but the actor, writer, and producer turns heads wherever she goes. Here's what to know about one of the least-known people in the Kennedy dynasty. The Kennedy family is known for its size. JFK's mom, Rose Kennedy, had 9 children, creating a large dynasty that has influenced everything from journalism to philanthropy to American politics. Because Rose hails from such a large family, some may wonder whether she and her wife Rory are planning to have children of their own. Chatting with Oh Hi Quarterly in 2022 about her plans for the future, Rory dropped a hint. When asked about potentially adding a baby to her life, she brought up her farm-to-table restaurant, saying, "I have a kid. It's Rory's place." It seems that Rose and Rory have been so focused on their professional lives that starting a family is off the table, at least for now. That said, Rose and Rory seem to have found other ways to build community. In the same interview, Rory's sister Maeve explained just how many connections they've made through Rory's place. She said, "We built our restaurant so it feels like you're eating at someone's house. We're here every day. Our staff is like family. Connections are being made all the time." In 2022, Rose wrote, directed, and starred in a short film called Small Gay Tragedy No. 1. The piece centers on a woman in Northern California who becomes intensely interested in a lesbian couple that has recently moved into her neighborhood. Over the course of the film, what begins as a casual curiosity escalates into something else entirely, calling into question the very fabric of reality. The short was showcased at the Mill Valley Film Festival and earned glowing reviews from the San Francisco Bay Times. This wasn't the only notable project Rose took on after the pandemic. In 2020, she starred in the humorous short Why We Vote, which was shared on the Rory's Place Instagram. From an early age, Rose had a unique relationship with her grandmother, Jackie Kennedy. The former First Lady is believed to have taken a special interest in her granddaughter, apparently hoping to prepare Rose for life as a grande dame of the American upper crust. As reported by the Daily Mail, Kennedy expert Christopher Anderson once noted that Jackie tried to achieve this by devoting much of her life to Rose. He revealed, "Jackie, who lived just a few blocks away from the Schlossbergs on the Upper East Side, saw Rose basically every day and doted on her." Anderson also claimed that Jackie wanted to teach Rose the rules of elite etiquette, adding, "Jackie knew it was important to sow the seeds of good behavior early on, and she tried to do that in the final years of her life. It was a mission for her." It's hard to say just how much Jackie was ultimately able to influence her granddaughter. Rose was just 5 years old when Jackie died in 1994. On December 30th, 2025, Rose's sister Tatiana Schlossberg died of leukemia. Tatiana was an influential environmental journalist and author with a wide reach. In fact, one of her final public outings was alongside Prince William. But no matter her global impact, to Rose, Tatiana was first and foremost a beloved sister and friend. Tatiana's funeral was held at the Church of St. Ignatius Loyola on Park Avenue, the same location as her grandmother Jackie Kennedy's funeral in 1994. Doctors told Tatiana in May 2024 that she had acute myeloid leukemia, a cancer of the blood, but she didn't publicly reveal her diagnosis until November 2025, just 6 weeks before her death. The woman Rose Kennedy Schlossberg was named after was Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. Fitzgerald Kennedy was born in 1890 to a prominent Irish-American Boston politician, getting her first taste of political life early on. She had 9 children with her husband Joseph Kennedy, with John F. Kennedy being her second born. Later in life, she supported her children throughout their political campaigning efforts, hosting parties and speaking at rallies for John, Ted, and Bobby's campaigns. Throughout her life, she suffered immense tragedy as many family members met untimely deaths. But despite the tragedy, she soldiered on until the age of 104 in 1995, according to the National Park Service. So who coined the name? Jackie was reportedly the one who suggested the name, despite both the late Rose and Jackie's mutual dislike for each other. Jackie supposedly told press secretary Pierre Salinger, "The old bat's about 100 years old, so let's give her some respect."
Well, I don't know what was expected of me. I just did what I thought was the pleasant thing to do.
Despite Jackie's often influence on Rose Kennedy Schlossberg's life, she's the daughter of Caroline Kennedy and Edwin Schlossberg. While most of Rose's family has been heavily involved in politics, her interests perhaps leaned closer to her father's career path as a designer and artist, and she's broken away from the political game in search of Hollywood success. Like many of her family members, Rose Kennedy Schlossberg is also an Ivy League graduate. She was set up for success early in life, having been enrolled as a child at a fancy all-girls private school in New York called Brearley School. school. Rose later received her bachelor's degree in English in 2010 at Harvard University, following in her mother's and grandfather's footsteps at their alma mater. While there, she developed an interest in fashion and film, which would eventually lead her toward her career in Hollywood. Before she'd moved toward her acting career in 2011, she enrolled in New York University in the Interactive Telecommunications program, receiving her master's degree in professional studies in 2013, according to Irish Central. Growing up, Rose was very close with her uncle John F. Kennedy Jr., who was the son of JFK and the brother of Caroline Kennedy. He was reportedly like a father to her, so when he died in a plane crash in 1999 along with his wife Carolyn Bessette and sister-in-law Lauren Bessette, when Rose was just 10 years old, she was crushed. JFK Jr. had insisted on piloting the plane, and experts believe the hazy conditions had disoriented him when it went down. He and Carolyn had planned to drop her sister off, then make their way to Rory Kennedy's wedding in Cape Cod, but they unfortunately never made it. According to the New York Post, a Kennedy family member said, Rose withdrew after John's death. She went into a 6-month depression during which she barely spoke to anyone. She stopped eating. She must have lost 30 pounds. Rose's studies reportedly took a temporary hit, but she managed to get back on track. Aside from the pressures of growing up within a well-known family, Rose faced several familial tragedies, which many have blamed on the Kennedy curse. The same family member said, if there was a saving grace, it was that both Jackie and John Jr. left her considerable trust funds. At the age of 14, Rose was worth millions. In 2008, long before she was endorsing Biden's presidential campaign, Caroline Kennedy wrote an article endorsing Obama for president, titled A President Like My Father, published in the New York Times. Caroline then served on the search committee for vice president. She brought her kids along with her to the political events, who, along with much of the public, were encouraging her to run for Senate. Rose said via the Harvard Crimson, "It was an exciting prospect, and I look forward to whatever role my mom chooses to play in this new era of American politics." Caroline eventually pulled herself out of the race after some poor luck. While Rose certainly hasn't been as involved in politics as many members of her family, she has consistently stood by her mother throughout her political endeavors. During this time, Rose also showed her support for Obama. Although she was only 20 at the time, she was so inspired by him that she donated $350 to his presidential campaign. Although she's now stepped away from politics following her endorsement of Obama, Rose Kennedy Schlossberg showed her support for another Democratic politician, Alan Khazei. Khazei ran for Massachusetts Senate in 2010, hoping to fill the seat of Senator Edward Ted Kennedy, who had passed away. A major focal point of Khazei's campaign was to emphasize the public to incite change rather than letting special interest groups have their say, which is why he only accepted donations from public citizens, according to the Harvard Crimson. Senator Kennedy was JFK Jr.'s uncle and Rose's granduncle, so by backing Khazei, she clearly believed in his abilities to replace Senator Kennedy. In her early 20s, she supported Khazei by volunteering for his campaign after he made a speech about the Afghanistan war, although he unfortunately lost the race via Boston Herald. It would seem that this was the last time Rose was directly involved in politics, but there are plenty of other Kennedys to fill that spot for her. In 2016, Rose and her friend Mara Nelson Greenberg released a 6-part comedy web series titled End Times Girl Club. The web series is a satirical take on your typical YouTube tutorial videos, but with a twist.
Hey, guys, welcome to End Times Girls Club, your ultimate guide to apocalypse survival.
Characters B, played by Schlossberg herself, and Laura, played by Nelson Greenberg, take you through the world of post-doomsday makeup, recipes, and survival tips, so you as the viewer will be prepared for the end times. Rose Kennedy Schlossberg says she came up with End Times Girls Club while studying at NYU, telling Mashable, "It came up as a response to seeing the way that New York responded to Hurricane Sandy and how people were grossly underprepared, specifically girls in damsel in distress mode." She explains that she wanted to create a quirky show where girls were, quote, survivalists without compromising their cute factor. Throughout Rose Kennedy Schlossberg's Hollywood career, she has been credited as an actress, producer, production associate, and writer on a handful of lesser-known works. Aside from a couple of parts, she's often been behind the scenes, including her work on Netflix's 2017 show Time, The Kalief Browder Story. Rose was credited for her involvement in all 6 episodes. The series focuses on the true story of Kalief Browder, a black teenager who was imprisoned at New York City's Rikers Island between 2010 and 2013 without trial over a supposed stolen backpack. Browder spent an inhumane period of time in solitary confinement, and the Netflix series with Jay-Z as executive producer dissects how a broken justice system and social class divide can cause so much despair. Although most viewers probably wouldn't have noticed Rose in the credits, her involvement speaks volumes. During her grandfather's presidency, the civil rights movement was in full swing. JFK was initially criticized for lacking the urgency needed to push civil rights forward, but just months before his assassination, he announced in a speech addressing the nation that he would send the legislation to Congress. Perhaps Rose took part in this Netflix series because it was a tragic story that needed to be told. Maybe she wanted to discuss the inequalities millions still face today, or perhaps she was inspired to argue for justice where her grandfather no longer can.
But we are still faced with tremendous inequality and injustice.
In the summer of 2022, Rose Kennedy Schlossberg married her longtime girlfriend, Rory McAuliffe, in a beautiful outdoor ceremony, with each of the women wearing very modern white dresses and black platform shoes. Family members and celebrities including David Letterman, Jason Segel, and Jimmy Buffett attended their wedding, but there were some reports of familial drama, all down to the family's religious beliefs conflicting with Rose's same-sex marriage. Despite this possibility, her mother, Caroline, was still in attendance. This wouldn't be a surprise, though, as there have been other reports of the Kennedys' cousins declining to attend other important weddings, like Tatiana Schlossberg's. It doesn't seem like Rose has done much publicly since the wedding, possibly opting for a less hectic life than the one Hollywood provides. She and Rory have moved to the tiny town of Ojai, located in Ventura County, California, where the vibe is much calmer than in Los Angeles.